In this episode of Project Marsha, we're going to work on getting our trunk gaps back where they need to be, as this one's non-existent, and on this side, it's crooked. Episode of Project Marsha, we're going to work on our trunk gaps, which is going to include also installing our replacement trunk lid, which needs some rust repair on the bottom side. We'll take a look at later in this video. But on this side of the car, we've got basically no trunk gap over here. It's touching the quarter panel extension cap over here, and it's tight all the way through the bottom. Now, as mentioned earlier in this series, this car had taken a hit on this side of the car, and it's had this quarter panel replaced. Well, we have a gap on this side of about 1/8 of an inch, but as we go down the trunk lid, it gets bigger to about almost 3/8 of an inch. At least. So what we need to do is we need to open up this trunk opening and get this quarter panel to roll a little bit. Now this end cap is a little bit out of adjustment, which will take care of some of this, but it's still too wide at the bottom and not as even at the top as it should be. Plus that side touching, when we open up our gap and close the trunk lid, when it catches on the latch, it'll pull the trunk lid over to the right side of the car and open our gap up over there. So that's what we're going to get into in this episode, so stay tuned and watch how we take care of opening up this trunk opening. Hey guys, I've been working feverishly here on Project Marsha with Ashton helping me out when he can. He's here for the summer, so he's going to be helping me out a little bit more. But I wanted to tell you about an upcoming event that we're going to have Marsha at, as long as we can get her done in time. It's going to be September 13th through the 15th in Bowling Green, Kentucky. It's the 5th annual Holly Mo Party. So be sure to come out to the show. We've got some special guests coming to be in the Mopar Connection booth this year. We're going to have Muscle Car Restorations there with a couple of their projects. Also, Robert and Justin of Kivy and Friends podcast will be there with their General Lee and a replica of Daisy's 74 Roadrunner. Why are we going to have Daisy's 74 Roadrunner there? Well, that's our other special guest that's going to be presented by AMD. We're going to have Miss Catherine Bach there, better known as Daisy Duke. So come out and visit us at the booth. We'll be there selling some shirts. We've got these great shirts. What does Mopar mean to you? With the Mopar Connection logo on the front here. You can also pick these up at www.moparconnectionmagazine.com. Go to the store and shop for a shirt. Help support the magazine. Help support these projects we got going on. Hope to see you out at the show on September 13th through the 15th. Again at Bowling Green, Kentucky. Hopefully we'll see you there.
I won't be there. Will I be there?
Alright, I'm starting to work on the back of this trunk area, and mentioned before this side had been hit. And just one thing I wanted to do before I started getting into trying to move any of these panels around was adjust this end cap to get my gap along my trunk opening here better. And it was not moving into position where I needed it to, which is probably why it was where it was at. So I decided to take this end cap off, and then just got to looking at this whole area here. This is where the car, I think, took the brunt of the hit. You can see down here there's still some of this back cross member piece is not straight. So one thing I noticed was it looked like the top of this panel, which is the filler panel between the quarter panel and the trunk piece, the back trunk piece, was at the very bottom edge of the quarter panel flange, which is not right. This should be up behind here, the very top of here. So I did a measurement. I took a spot on the other side of the car and I measured it, and I came to this side of the car and I went to the same area, which is right here, and my measurement is, it's almost an inch low. So this corner is down an inch. which in theory doesn't make sense as to why I've got a tight gap here, but it was because of the position the quarter panel was put on is why that is like that now. And again, this car is not going to be a show car. It's a fun car. It's a get it solid car. Let's get driving the car type of project. But you want it to look decent. And one of the things that is going to be not correct is this hole here. This is one of the bumper mount holes. So if it's down an inch, there's no way to get that bumper lined up correctly unless I elongate the hole and just leave all this mess alone, which may end up be what we do. But before we go that route, I really want to try and see if I can't undo some of this welding up here where this is attached. We know we're going to have to put a lower quarter on it down here, so I technically could zip cut it along here to free it, and then there's just a couple spots where it's brazed on here, and just try to see if I can't get a jack under here, put some pressure on this panel to push it upwards and get some of this other mess that's here that's not straightened out so that it'll hold this in position. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to show you the entire procedure because it'll probably be boring. This, as well as what I'm sitting here telling you, is probably boring you, but just trying to explain what we're going to try and do with this car to try and get this back end straightened out a little better than it originally was done. Okay, I wanted to bring you back after I've been working on this a little bit to show you how I'm going to try and move this filler panel up where it's supposed to be. And as you can see, I've got my porta power underneath the bottom of that panel. That's where the top of the cross member and that panel come together, so it's kind of a strong point to push on. The biggest disadvantage I have is I don't have a way to tie the car down to the floor in my shop. I don't have any pots in the floor to chain it down to. So what I've done is I've got my porta power under here, and I've got it extended up using the weight of the car as my leverage, and it's worked out where we'll bring you in a little closer here. I've got the panel pushed almost all the way up where it's supposed to be. As you can see, these holes, which are supposed to line up, are almost where they need to be. I'm only about 1/8, 3/16 of an inch off now. Now, the trick is to get this panel to stay where I've got it at now. So I have to figure out where I've got a bead on it to straighten out the metal to get it to stay up. So that's what we're going to do. Try and get the panel to stay where it needs to be. Well, I've got this pretty close. Not sure about this here. I think this has got to go down. This obviously needs to come up some. If I put this drift pin in there and use it as a centering tool, I can get that lined up perfect, right back where it's supposed to be. I do believe the top of this quarter is high and it needs to be pulled down because this hole should be where this hole is, so we're still a bit off there. But I think I may go ahead and weld this, get this reattached to where it's supposed to be, and take the pressure off the jack and see what happens. see this, but when I pull this down over here and get that hole lined up, my gap gets perfect. So there's where our problem is. Part of it is that this is not where it needs to be. So stays fairly close. I'm going to go ahead and clean all this rust up along here and here, and I'm going to pull these panels together where they're supposed to be and start tacking it. Alright, bring you back in for one more look before I start welding. I've been able to manipulate this filler piece a little bit more, and I used a drift, got my drift here in as far as I can get it. I used one more in this hole, and I got this panel lined up on this side, clamped here. These holes, this one here, well, at least this hole, is a locating hole. Put in there from the factory when these panels are being assembled. There's a piece that goes in here and lines these holes up when they're putting the panels on, so they know they're sitting where they're supposed to be in correlation to the adjoining panel that it's going on. So, being as I've got this right back where it's supposed to be, I now know this quarter panel is where it should have been when the car was repaired however many years ago it was done. I've got my welder set up here. I'm going to go ahead and put some tacks on this and get this panel so it'll stay here. So we got everything welded back up on this top portion. Quarter panel now sitting where it's supposed to. This little section here is down and kicked in a little bit, so my gap should be good here. I've got a little bit of work to do on the bottom part. Get this back lined up right, and probably going to end up kicking the quarter panel in some as it comes down. And then again, all this down here was never fixed properly either, so we'll do what we can there. I'm going to go ahead and take the pressure off of my porta power and see what happens. Well, it stayed where it was. Mission accomplished. So I've got my end cap bolted back on the quarter panel, and there's enough adjustment in it that I can get it fit really nice. It fits better than it did, definitely fits better than it did prior to us repairing this filler panel in here. It probably fits about as good as it would have fit from the factory in 1970. So we're going to leave it at that, and we'll make some adjustments when we perform the bodywork stage of this. The gap's a little bit fat up here, which I can fill in. I've got a little bit of work to do to the quarter here. It's kind of rolled at this edge, so we'll take care of that as we get moving on with the rest of the body work to this quarter panel. There's going to be a lot of adjustments to make with this because it just really wasn't put on very well. But I hope you enjoyed seeing this little bit of Marsha, how we're fixing some things that weren't done properly way back when, and how you can do it without having body shop equipment per se, and getting things back to where they're supposed to be. Again, please go to www.moparconnectionmagazine.com to see all the content from Marsha and all the upcoming videos that we'll have coming out about the transformation of Marsha. And we're going to keep working on this thing until we've got her ready for Kevin to take home and put the new drivetrain in. So everybody, make sure you keep checking back in and check out all the other articles and project cars going on the magazine, and we'll see you again real soon.